the whole world ramping up their EV sales, there's one brand who have proven that they can build a very impressive electric car, and that's Kia. However, cars like the EV6 and the EV9, they were almost niches in their market. The Kia EV6 came along and we'd never seen anything like it. This futuristic, sporty-looking electric car with plenty of range and charging capabilities. And then the EV9, well, it didn't really have tough competition. There was nothing dominating the seven-seater electric car market, but it came in and it showed the other brands how to do a seven-seater car. But when it comes to fully electric small SUVs, well, it's a different story. There's a crowded market of some really impressive cars. You've got one of my favourite, the Smart #1, and then you've also got the recently raved about Volvo EX30. So when it comes to building a fully electric small SUV, can they still stand out as being one of the best in class? Well, that's what I'm going to find out today, because I'm in Frankfurt and I'm taking a look at the recently announced Kia EV3. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know, show you around the interior and exterior, and tell you all of the important electric bits. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching. And if you like new car reviews and car content, well, you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. So first of all, let's talk about the all-important charging and range capabilities.
Like when the E-niro was first launched, the EV3 will be available with the choice of either standard or long range. What's for certain is that they're both impressive offerings. The standard will be fitted with a 58.3 kWh battery, capable of a touch over 250 miles. The long range comes kitted with a bigger 81.4 kWh battery and boasts a range of just under 350 miles, a range usually reserved for much bigger, pricier models. Both cars share a respectable amount of power at 204 horsepower and will hit the 0 to 62-hour sprint in between 7.4 and 7.7 seconds. The only slightly disappointing figure is the charging. The EV3 does not share the same powerful 800-volt charging of its bigger brothers. Its top end is 102 kilowatts for the standard and 128 kilowatts for the long range. A little more than the Niro can handle, but behind a lot of its rivals. However, max charge speed is only as quick as the charger you can find. It can still top up from 10 to 80% in just 30 minutes, which, let's face it, is more than sufficient for a road trip.
Design language of this new EV3 reminds me of so many different Kia cars. It's got a lot of Picanto about it, it's got a lot of EV9 about it, and it's also got quite a lot of Niro about it as well. Around the front it gives you a lot of EV9, it's like a baby EV9. You've got those new lighting signatures which have these very thin lines and these strips vertically, and then you've got the twinkly lights which they call their lighting clusters, and you've got this very bold black line which goes all the way along the front of the bonnet. It's actually quite a striking vehicle, and though its looks may have you deceived that it's quite bulky, it's actually extremely aerodynamic. That's how they were able to achieve such a high figure when it comes to that range.
Like its larger sibling, the EV9, Kia's engineers have paid great attention to detail in making the EV3 as efficient as possible. They've improved the car's aerodynamics by adding a 3D undercover, resulting in an impressive low drag coefficient of 0.263. The EV3 also boasts advanced battery management unit and cell monitoring unit technology, which optimises the energy usage. Efficiency is something the brand has proven that they're good at achieving, and it just goes to show that they're always striving for better.
Coming around to the side of the vehicle, this is where it gives me that element of Niro EV. It shares a lot with that car, including these heavily cladded wheel arches. These are finished in gloss black when it comes to this GT line car, and of course this is always going to be the best looking version of this model. I quite like the alloy wheels. I like how they're not too busy, there isn't too much going on. They're mostly finished in that gloss black with just those tints of the chrome which give it a premium detail. Around the back is where it gives me a lot of Picanto. It looks very similar. If you've seen my walk around of the Kia Picanto, it looks a lot like that. You've got these rear lights which hug the outer edges. Now there is something controversial. Have you spotted it? There's no rear wiper, and we know that a lot of brands are starting to go back on this decision. For instance, the new Ioniq 5 in its update actually now has a rear wiper, so it's interesting to see if this will always be wiper-free.
Kia is going to offer the EV9 in 9 body colours, 2 of which have been created exclusively for the new model. This is aventurine green and terracotta. What I love is there's also a wide selection of interior colours, materials and trim finishes, inspired by air, earth and water elements. Options include a subtle grey, warm grey, blue and onyx black, which is available exclusively on the GT line trim.
Once again, when it comes to boot space, the EV3 proves that anything you can do, it can do better, because inside here you'll find 460 litres. Now that's over 100 litres more than you'll find in the Volvo EX30 or the Smart #1, and it's even bigger than the current class-leading Renault Megane E-Tech. It's also super user-friendly. You've got a nice flat load area, and you've also got a retractable parcel shelf. The one thing I'd say is the finishing touches are a little bit off. You see, when you use this retractable parcel shelf, the area that it goes into could be a little bit higher quality. And also just the finishes are a little bit scratchy, so they're probably not going to wear the best over time. But overall, as a small SUV, it's the space that really matters.
They've even managed to squeeze some space underneath the bonnet. In here you'll find 25 litres, more than enough to store your cables and around 10 litres more than the EX30 and the Smart. There's a trend here.
If you liked the interior of the Volvo EX30, but you didn't really like how stripped back it was, then I think you're going to love the interior of this EV3, because it takes that blend of materials, those textures that you got in the EX30, but it elevates it. It adds a few more buttons. It's a little bit more user-friendly, and I really like it in here. I love this steering wheel, the two-tone effect, loads of physical buttons, and I also love that you've got a drive mode right in the middle of the steering wheel. I think this is really user-friendly, because if you want to sit in economy most of the time, which is what I do in an electric car, but you suddenly need a burst of power, it's right there on the steering wheel. Also, if you're sustainable conscious, then it's great news when it comes to this car, because Kia have used loads of sustainable materials around the whole cabin. In fact, they've even put a QR code. So if you wanted to find out all of the sustainable items in your vehicle, then you can quickly link to that, I guess, to show off to people that come in your car. It actually features up to 28.5 kilograms of recycled plastic, and this is something which Kia are really focusing on when it comes to their new models, and I think that's fantastic. And there isn't any loss in quality. It feels really high quality in here. I especially absolutely love these two-tone GT line seats. These feel fantastic. And everywhere you touch feels very interesting. There's lots of mix of materials. And we have to talk about this center console. Now, the really interesting and fun thing with electric cars is designers can have so much fun when it comes to center consoles. No longer do they need to house the drive tunnel, so you can play around with the space. You've got tons of space underneath here, and you've got the retractable cup holders, which we've seen in many of new Kia products, and also a wireless charging pad. But in the center here, we also have a pull-out table. So this pulls forward, and at that point you can put a laptop on it, drinks, which is great. You also have the center armrest as well, which will lift up. Now this for me is hit and miss. I like that they're having fun, they're playing around with it, it's something a bit different, but its functionality, it's a little bit lost on me personally, mainly because we've lost any storage to tuck things away. There isn't anywhere in here that you can actually hide items other than in the glove box. And I also would love if it tilted towards you, so when you was at the charger, you could sit with your laptop almost on your lap, rather than to the side of you. However, I'm not knocking it. I think it's interesting that they get to play around and have these different options. And if you need more storage, then there's plenty more in the Kia range to choose from, but this just gives you a little bit of a quirk over some of the competition. If you're wondering if whether this screen setup looks familiar, that's likely because it's come straight out of the Kia EV9, a more expensive and more premium product, so it's fantastic that we're seeing it in this smaller EV3. You've got two 12-inch screen setups, and then you've got this little 5-inch climate control cluster in the centre. Now, interestingly, everything was raved about when it came to the Kia EV9, apart from this little screen in the middle. Sure, it's brilliant that you've got some climate control dials at all times. However, it's a little bit obscured by the wheel for the driver, and it's a little bit too far away when it comes to the passenger. I like the idea of this, but I don't think it's been executed quite as they expected. And I think that by the time the feedback came through about the EV9, this was almost in production. So it's a shame that this hadn't come a little bit later and they'd learnt from that and possibly put it somewhere else. Even being on the far right would mean that I could still reach it, but I could also see it. That's the negatives, however. But the positives far outweigh that. It's really user-friendly and it's super responsive. It's also very easy to use because you've got some physical buttons. So you've got some haptic buttons which are just into the dashboard here. They look very sleek, and these will navigate you home, navigate you to your map and various other functions. You also have some physical climate control dials underneath as well. Shortcuts for your temperature and also your fan speed. This makes it far easier to use. The one thing that I don't like, however, is this central volume control button. It just feels a little bit cheap. I would have liked to have seen it finished in this chrome design.
Kia has equipped the EV3 with advanced safety, driving, convenience and charging features that are usually found in larger SUVs. For example, it comes with various advanced driving assistance systems, including electric dynamic torque vectoring control, which ensures a smooth and stable power transfer to the road, on top of all the usual safety annoyances. I mean assistances. What's cool is the fact that it's kitted out with Kia's remote smart parking assist, which allows owners to manoeuvre the EV3 into tight spaces without sitting in the vehicle, and even a 12-inch head-up display can be offered. Like some of other Kia's electric products, the EV3 features a vehicle-to-load charging, which enables occupants to power external devices like laptops, fridges, coffee machines or hairdryers. Kia's Digital Key 2.0 also allows customers to unlock and start the EV3 using their smartphone or smartwatch. They can even share the digital key with others.
We've had another offender when it comes to the quirky door handles. If you've watched my videos recently, I mentioned on the Alfa Romeo Junior that they'd opted to move their door handles lower down to up here on the rear quarter. Now, though this gives the car a more sporty feel and it gives it a more sleek design without the door handles on the side, usability can be limited. You see, if you've got smaller children, reaching up here can be slightly more difficult. Let me know, do you like the door handles up here, or would you prefer them just the standard design? So the interior space of this car is actually around the same as a Kia Sportage, which is interesting because the Sportage looks like a much bigger car from the outside. The only thing which is hindered on this model is possibly headroom. You see, they've actually moved the batteries quite far up, and that means you sit up quite high, so headroom, it's tight. But other than that, space is really good. I've got loads of legroom and it's very comfortable back here. You've got a decent amount of amenities. It's not best in class, but it's certainly not worst. You've got a little bin here for some storage. You've got your climate, however, it doesn't actually have tri-zone climate control, but you do have your air vents. You've got your little charge points just on the backs of the seats, which I love. A little bit of storage in some not all that great door pockets, but let's face it, it's still handy to have. And you've also got a pull-out armrest with a couple of cup holders. As I said, it's not best in class, but it's certainly a pretty decent place to be. If you're in the market for a new electric car, you can't go far wrong with a Kia. Time and time again, they've proven that they can beat the competition at their own game. building cars which stand out, which are a little bit interesting, and they break the mould when it comes to interiors. I wasn't too sure if they'd be able to stand up to the rest of the impressive competition, but once again they've showed up and they've showed that they're still best in class. But don't take my word for it. What do you think of the EV3? I want to hear all of your thoughts on the car down below. Do you think they've done enough to stand out against the rivals, including their very own E-niro EV? Let me know in the comments down below. I really hope you have enjoyed the video. If you have, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And you know what to do. If you want to see more videos like this from me on Also Social UK, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Until next time, guys, see you later.